you. Can you hear me?
Can, thank you.
All right. Of course, I'm on my iPad because I never have been able to get my laptop to work with the city email or anything.
Have you brought your laptop in and had Peter go over it with you?
Yeah, and it lasted a week. So, anyway, I'm good on there. I'll get with him again one day. But
Okay,
the iPad works well.
okay.
It's my old iPad till they say they won't update it anymore.
Okay, I've got 5:30. Can everybody hear me okay? I see nodding of heads. I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay. All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the June 28th, 2021 City Council meeting for the City of the Dalles. I'd like at this point to ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Long Curtis. Everyone's muted.
Present.
Counselor McLaughlin,
McLaughlin here.
Counselor Runyon,
Present.
Counselor Richardson. I see him, but he's here. And Counselor Randall,
Present.
Mayor Mays.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to call on Councilor Richardson to please lead us in the pledge.
I'm not hearing him. Is anyone else hearing him?
No.
Nope.
Dan, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I can do it, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor McLaughlin. We'll hopefully.
All right,
Go ahead.
all right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Liberty and justice for all.
for all. Two.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Hopefully, Councilor Richardson will get his technical issue straightened out in short order. Approval of the agenda is item number 4. Do I hear a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll move to approve our agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Councilor Runyon and seconded by Councilor Long Curtis to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
McLaughlin, aye.
I see 5 votes in approval. Councilor Richardson is back. Thank you very much. Item 5 is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the city council for up to 5 minutes?
Scott McEwen.
Okay, I also see Mr. Kenny Lapointe. Mr. McGowan, we'll get to you second, okay?
Certainly.
Mr. Lapointe, go ahead and address the city council.
Thank you, Mayor Mays, members of the council. Good to see you all again. I'm here today because I wanted to mention some good news that Mid-Columbia Community Action received at the end of this legislative session. With the passage of House Bill 5006, the Budget Reconciliation Bill, many of you may know this as the Christmas Tree Bill, I am pleased to announce that Mid-Columbia Community Action has received $1.5 million for the development of a navigation center in the Dalles. A navigation center is deemed as a multi-agency service site and homeless shelter. So this is a site where we will move the shelter once we acquire land or an existing property. We will move the current shelter from its place where it is right now to this site, and we will also put multiple agencies under sort of one roof. We've got a few commitments from other agencies within the community that include the Mid-Columbia Center for Living, the One Community Health, the Next Door, Nichiwana Housing, the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority, and the Oregon Human Development Corporation. We have a subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness that is currently out searching for a site. So we're looking throughout the Dalles to find a site that will work for this project. And I will just mention that while we have $1.5 million, we do foresee needing additional funds to assist us with the full completion of the project. But it's really good news for this community. It's gonna get a resource into the Dalles that we probably have needed for a very long time. And Mid-Columbia Community Action is very excited to take the lead on this project. And I just want to recognize both the mayor and the members of the council that have assisted in supporting our request in House Bill 5006. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kenny. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Lapointe? Council Runyon.
So ultimately, with this, assuming land gets found and whatnot, would you move the present office for Mid-Columbia Community Action to that location?
Great question, Councilmember Runyon. Yes, the goal would be that we move our existing offices. For anybody who has been in Mid-Columbia Community Action's existing offices, they're extremely outdated and small, and we've gone from an agency of 9 staff when I started in November to about 25 now, and we are in a rather small house on 4th Street, so our plan would be to move our entire operation and sell the existing home and go to the new site.
As a former chair of that agency, yeah, I hated going up those stairs. And as I got older, it got worse. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Council Runyon. Anybody else? Kenny, you mentioned that you've been here since November, so by my count, that's about 8 months. I think you've been doing some great work at the Mid-Columbia Community Action, and this is just another example of the great work you've been doing, and I, for one, appreciate it very much. Thank you. And thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Okay, let's go to Mr. Scott McCown. Did I pronounce that correctly, sir?
McEwen.
McEwen, I'm sorry.
That's why. Some positive comments. I just gone through the planning and construction process for the food cart pod at 2638 West 6th Street. And I just want to say thank you and express gratitude to the planning and building employees of the city of the Dalles. In particularly Joshua Chandler in planning, moved the project along. We set conditions, but they were realistic. Particularly to Jill, I hope I pronounced her name right, Hoyenga. The state of Oregon requires a wastewater survey, difficult for a layman. She had resources to help me with and eventually approved it. And also Matt Caldwell, plumbing inspector, who as a layman, it's difficult to interpret the Chapter 7 of the Plumbing Specialty Code, and he helped me through it, and we came up with a plan that was efficient and effective for the underground utilities. So just want to say that in the city's slogan, it says working together, and I found that to be quite true of the city of the Dalles, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'd like to take this opportunity to to ask you mentioned a couple of people there. Their supervisor happens to be with us, Ms. Alice Cannon. And I want to make sure that the names were pronounced correctly. And Ms. Cannon, if you'd like to comment or clear anything up, I'm sure it would be appreciated.
Well, thank you. It's really nice to get a compliment or get a few compliments every once in a while. So thank you very much for that. We're regulators in our department. So
Alice, you muted yourself. There you go.
Oh, sorry about that. So our service as being a regulator, we're not always the most popular people in town. That being said, it's nice to hear that we provide good service. So I really appreciate you taking the time to point out the good service we provided to you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, Public Works Director Anderson is also here by phone, and one of his employees is Jill Hoyenga.
Yes, I recognize that name as well. Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Any other comments or questions for Mr. McEwen? Mr. McEwen, what is your, are you the owner of the property or?
My LLC, Pomona Street LLC, is the owner.
Okay,
And we're presently leasing food carts and having good response from the community.
good. Well, thank you for being here very much. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to address the city council?
Yes, Anna Granados.
Yes, Ms. Granados, go ahead.
Hi, yes. So I'm Anna Granados. I'm a marketing coordinator with The Next Door. I'd just like to address the city council with a statement, just kind of reminding about the work that The Next Door does in the community. So The Next Door has been serving the community gorge for 50 years. And in this time, we have grown to offer nearly 50 programs, each created to serve our unique community and its ever-changing needs. The most recognizable of these programs are our therapeutic foster care and gorge youth mentoring programs. These and most of our program are focused on creating stabilization or treatment for youth who need a lifeline. Just in the last year, The Next Door has added 50 new programs to serve those most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Those facing joblessness, financial challenges, family turmoil, physical and mental health struggles, and many more have benefited from The Next Door's services. We were able to immediately shift our programs to accommodate the incredible needs of our community. Those who struggled without an income, who struggled to keep the kids engaged in distance learning, those who needed mental health support to help them process the uncertainty. We proved instantly our value to this community. And I am here tonight to remind the council and the city of the Dalles that The Next Door is an important part of the community and the service we provide are a critical need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Granados? Okay, moving on. Is there anyone else who would like to address the city council? Anybody? Last call? Okay. That concludes audience participation. We now move to item 6, which is the city manager's report. Ms. Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor Mays. Couple things for you this evening. I wanted to let you all know that all the city facilities will be opening regularly beginning Wednesday this week. And I believe I told you this already, but just a reminder that we will be remodeling our council chamber this summer. So we will continue to have our council and commission meetings by Zoom until the first meeting in September. And then one thing that just came to my attention right before 5 o'clock is that I have been working with Wasco County and seeing if they were considering adding a fireworks ban to the county's burn ban. We've heard a lot of comments. I've seen a lot of social media posts, a lot of questions and concerns about having fireworks during this terrible heat wave and fire danger season. And so right before 5 o'clock, I received a notice from that the city of Bend has enacted a local state of emergency regarding this very issue. So I was able to get a copy of it from our city clerk right before 5 o'clock. And it is a limited duration. It kind of takes it through that heat wave period to July 9th. They allow commercial fireworks displays such as the one we have planned out in the river. And that is all, no personal fireworks at all. So I wanted to ask the city council if you have any interest in having us put one of these in place for the city of the Dalles, based on the fact that we're going to have this heat wave for another, week and a half, and it's very dry. Now we have winds coming this week. I would recommend that we do it. I think we're in a very dangerous situation. When I did speak with Tyler over at the county, he didn't have any commission meetings coming up that he could discuss it with his commission and get something done quickly enough. So I thought I would raise it to you and see if you want to do a city declaration.
Before I call on members of the city council for comments, I had a conversation with the fire chief today, and I believe that he is considering doing a joint declaration, which isn't the same as what Ms. Kruger was alluding to.
That's correct. We talked about releasing a statement from the county, city, and the fire district, just encouraging people not to do it, but this would actually be a ban.
Right. So I told the fire chief that I'd be happy to sign on any sort of joint declaration, but what Ms. Kruger is suggesting, as she explained, is something a little more forceful. I, for one, would encourage it, and I'd be supportive of it. Does anybody else on the city council have any comments? I believe she's looking for some direction.
Thank you.
Councilor Long Curtis.
Yes, I'm actually very interested in doing this. I was going to bring it up later. I do think that we need to do that. We're in a drought situation, and with the wind combined with this once in a 1,000-year heat index, then I really think that we just need to put something in place to protect our city and our citizens.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I'd be inclined to support that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Richardson. Councilor Randall, did you want to say anything? I thought I saw you unmute yourself.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Randall. I agree. I think conditions definitely warrant a forceful declaration, a ban.
Councilor Runyon.
You know, generally these things are handled by the fire departments and so forth. I guess my question is, if we do something more forceful, as I've heard 2 or 3 times, what do we mean by that? What is, you know, are there penalties? What are we doing?
The example that I have from the city of Bend, aside from allowing the commercial one, as I already mentioned, let me get to that page. We went through quite a lot of whereases. There. Give me one moment, Councilor Running. I don't want to give you the wrong thing. Under the emergency order, they'll consider the fireworks a Class A civil infraction with a penalty or fine up to $750.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Runyon?
Yeah, it answers it. I don't know if I like it.
$750 to not have a fire would be, well,
I think $750 is pretty reasonable considering the damages that can be done with somebody doing something so reckless. Councilor Richardson.
Mr. Mayor, I have a little hesitancy in a fine of that size, given that I think there's going to be a challenge in getting the word out. I have every confidence in our staff's ability to turn this around quickly, but it's maybe sometimes difficult to get word to people that aren't reading the newspaper or other media channels. So maybe a slightly more modest fine would be appropriate, in my opinion.
Ms. Kruger, if the county is not interested or they can't get a meeting together to pass such a measure, and if the fire department only wants to stick with their declaration as opposed to what you're suggesting, would that suggest that the city would be going alone on this?
Well, first of all, it's not that the county wasn't interested, they just didn't have an opportunity. And the fire district doesn't have the authority of a county or municipality to implement this declaration of emergency. So that's why I'm suggesting we do it for the city of the Dalles, because we do have the authority to do that.
Okay, in
My
light of-
recommendation is to do it for a short period of time. For instance, the city of Bend, theirs only goes through July 9th. It's just during that excessive heat time.
Right. And it would not affect what you call the commercial display, such as what's going to happen on July 4th.
Correct.
Right. Councilor Long Curtis.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions then. So what happens now if someone starts a fire with their fireworks under normal conditions, if there is nothing in place? Are they responsible for that?
Don't know exactly. Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue has their own set of rules for that, and I know they do have negligent clauses for certain fires. I don't know exactly what that is, Councilor Long Curtis.
Okay. And then another question that I have is under what circumstances would a commercial display be prohibited, or what conditions would be so extreme that we wouldn't allow that?
Those are controlled and permitted through the fire district in the state, and it's out on the river. So I wouldn't have any concern with allowing that to continue. It's very well regulated.
Right. So, but it's not the city, it's state level permits?
Yes, they go through the state fire marshal's office, and then I believe Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue also has to sign off on that.
Okay. So I guess my final comment then would be that we always hope that we don't have to pass ordinances or make emergency declarations for people to do the right thing. And I think that any reasonable person would understand that it's extraordinarily dangerous right now under these conditions. And so, although I understand Councilor Richardson's concern about the short timeline to get the word out, I also fear that anybody who is not willing to voluntarily forego fireworks under these circumstances does need a higher penalty to motivate them to not break that for their own satisfaction. And I think that it will cost us a lot more as a community if something catches on fire. So I think that we need to be clear that we are very serious about this, and this is something we don't want people to take chances on.
It seems to me, well, first of all, is there any other comments before I try to summarize what I'm hearing?
Yes, I'd like to know a little bit more about Fire Chief, his comments and recommendations. Did you get a sense that he wants it banned, or?
No, I got the sense that he would be satisfied with a declaration, a joint declaration with the city, discouraging people from doing anything dangerous or reckless. Does that answer your question, Counselor?
Yes.
From what Counselor Runyon, did you have something?
And I think we should definitely do that, the joint declaration, which is another matter. Councilor Long Curtis brought up a good point a moment ago in one of her questions about, what are the penalties now? If I were to go out and light fireworks off and, burn down my neighbor's house, I think there are penalties out there. It would have been nice to have that information, what fines and so forth, before doing this. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just trying to get the questions out there that the public might be asking as they listen to our discussion. So I'm going to assume there are penalties under both the police and fire department for heinous acts, burning things down. So, but it is a unusual time in our history, no doubt about that. Do you recall, Julie, ever having to do this in your history with the city?
No, we have not done this in my tenure with the city.
Yeah.
Julie, if we did get a consensus from the city council to proceed with this, and we don't have a meeting, of course, until July the 12th, are you suggesting we come back for a special meeting to pass this, or how?
No, I'm asking tonight if you are interested or not. If you are, we can get this turned around very quickly. We have a really good example right in front of me from another city, and I know some other cities are also working on this. We could probably have it out tomorrow afternoon to the public, to the media.
Without a council vote tonight,
Pardon me?
without the city council formally voting on it.
Well, you can vote on it. Someone just needs to make a motion and second and vote.
Okay. What I'm gathered here is and I hope I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. There seems to be support for doing what the city manager is recommending. And the only hangup is the amount of the fine. If we can.
It's not that big a hang up, Mr. Mayor. It was just a thought. I was sort of thinking through it out loud.
Well, but it's something Council Runyon brought up as well, Mr. Council Richardson. So whether we're thinking out loud or whether I'm just trying to get a consensus on how big the fine should be, so that we can give this back to the city manager and get this thing taken care of.
I think we can look through our nuisance ordinances, and our city attorney can come up with a fine that is probably already in there for other nuisance type things, and we can come up with an appropriate amount. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not opposed to the one that the city of Bend used, but I know we have some fee structures in our code already for other things. I just don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry, it's short notice. I just got this right before 5.
Councilor McLaughlin?
I'm concerned about the impact. Do we have any church groups or any fundraising efforts for 4th of July sales of fireworks? I'm not worried about the private, but we should notify them right away if this passes tonight. It will have an impact on their business and profits, and it may. So that would be another something we should consider.
Is the council prepared to pass this tonight and leaving it to the city manager to establish a fine consistent with our nuisance ordinances, even though none of us have any idea how much that is?
If
Yes,
not,
I'm in favor.
oh, I'm sorry. If you choose not to, I will still proceed to work with the county and the district on our combined statement that we're working on right now.
Well,
Are you looking for a motion, Mr. Mayor?
yeah, I'm looking for a motion but if you want to make a motion with a suggested fine, I think that'd be fine. Appropriate, no pun intended.
I'll make a motion. Were you about to, Dan? Go ahead.
Please continue.
I will make a motion that we use the Bend ordinance as our
Model.
yes, thank you, as our model, also using their $750 fine because of the short time frame and the fact that we are just trying to discourage people from taking a dangerous action.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Long Curtis to use Bend as a model with the $750 fine. Is there a second?
Well, the proposal needs to say that we ban fireworks for this period of time.
I'm sure that's what the Bend ordinance says, I would think.
But we don't have that in front of us, but it should be stated.
Would you like Julie to summarize the points again? There were
Yes, that would
dates
be
and
great. Yes, that would be good.
Councilor McLaughlin, the model that I have in front of me has July 9th as the conclusion of the state of emergency, because that's pretty much the end of the super hot extreme weather that we're expecting.
So it is a ban on fireworks for that duration of time in the Dalles proper.
That's the proposal.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, getting back, is there a second to Councilor Long Curtis's motion?
I will go ahead and second this.
Okay, any more discussion about this issue?
Just a request to staff that city manager and staff just make pretty energetic efforts in getting word out quickly.
Right.
That's all. Thank you.
I'm in agreement with that.
Thank you, Counselor. Oh, Counselor Runyon.
Back to the amount of money under discussion and whatnot, I would like it to say not to exceed $750. I hate seeing some family that is, in the middle of a cul-de-sac on the pavement, and boom, here comes law enforcement or what have you, and a major fine like that's a lot of money in my world. But if it were to say not to exceed, that would leave some latitude. What do you think?
Counselor Long Curtis, are you okay with that?
I'd like to ask the city attorney if that would cause any kind of problem. If not, then I would accept that.
Thank you, Councilor Long Curtis. Mr. Mayor, Councilor Runyon, if we put in a not to exceed threshold and it's a municipal violation, it would put it at the discretion of the municipal court judge to set the limits of the violation. And so if we'd like to have the judge take these cases as they come to him for evaluation on a case-by-case basis, that can be done. There's no reason that it can't be. No problem.
I'd be more inclined to support it if that were the case.
I will accept the friendly amendment.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Well, hopefully there's no one that violates this, and we all agree that it's a severe time in our, with weather. So we need to stop the fireworks for this year.
You're okay?
And I get that, but it seems like every meeting we're talking about homeless and people that are without necessities and whatnot. I would like to have some discretion on the fine by the judge and taking into account circumstances, et cetera. I think that'd be a little more, a little better, maybe not.
Well, it seems that Counselor Long Curtis and Counselor McLaughlin are okay with your suggestion. So we do have a motion on the floor to pass the ordinance, or the emergency declaration, I should say, modeled after the Bend Declaration, with the only exception being the words "not to exceed" as attached to the $750 fine. Does that summarize it okay with everybody?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
McLaughlin, aye.
Is there anybody opposed? The motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you very much. Do you have enough direction, Ms. Kruger?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I do apologize for the quick request, but I think it's very urgent for our community. And I appreciate your discussion very much. Thank you. And that concluded my report as well, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney report, Mr. Kara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have a report tonight. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions from the council, but other than that, nothing tonight.
I'm sure you wouldn't object if I was to point out our conversation earlier this morning that I've asked Mr. Kara to prepare a presentation to the City Council in late July regarding all the House bills and court cases in regards to the homeless issue, specifically the issue of houseless people on public property, and he has agreed to do that. So that would be on July 26th, I believe. So any questions for Mr. Kara? City Council reports. We'll start with Councilor Runyon.
Okay, let's see here. My golly, it's been busy. On June 17th, once again, listened in on the League of Oregon Cities statewide call and the upcoming release of the people from some of the COVID rules and so forth, which we were talked about earlier. On the 20th of June, I was the narrator for a music fundraiser for the Civic Auditorium, raising money for their curtains and so forth. The event was called Northwest Passage. It was a music show performed by a local author, Dale Rollins, and local musicians, and they did quite well. On the 24th, attended the Q Life Internet Board meeting, and I hope to provide a report on a couple of projects that are complete or very near completion by our next meeting. And then on Friday, along with Grandpa Mays, I attended the Children's Theater production of Benefit at the Civic Auditorium, and it was a benefit for the Children's Theater group in the Dalles, which I didn't even know existed. And it was well attended, and a certain little granddaughter just stole the show, in my opinion. Olivia just did a tremendous job, but all the young people did. But she was the littlest one on the stage and had the biggest presence of all. Grandpa.
Thank you, Councilor Runyon. That was the finest report I've ever heard you make in the 2.5 years I've been there. Okay, thank you very much. Going to Councilor Long Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I met with the city manager and had a couple of items of discussion. I also met with several constituents talking about the Commodore, the concern about the fire danger, and also the need for additional public toilets downtown, and some trouble that people from the ships were having locating an open bathroom, even though the veterans is supposed to be open and accessible to them. I don't know if it was a case of them not finding it or if the building was closed that day, but it was a concern. And I'll bring up some suggestions during our ARP discussion. And I was also in touch with the Sister Cities Association, just making sure that they know that I'm their new council representative, and that when they do start meeting again to discuss interaction between our groups, that I will be invited, and so I can give a report to the council at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
Mayor Mays, I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Councilor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 23rd, the Historic Landmarks Commission considered a request to reconstruct the facade of the Recreation Cafe to match early 1900s historic facade with wooden windows. Additionally, they considered a request to replace 2 basement windows in a private residence in the historic, well, in an inventory of historic properties. Both requests were approved with conditions. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Finally, Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 17th, I attended the Brownfield Advisory Committee. I should say on the 16th, I attended the Traffic Safety Commission regular meeting. On the 24th, attended, watched, participated in the Chamber's Government Affairs program, which was discussing Energy Trust of Oregon and their programs. And on the 25th, I attended the community outreach team meeting and was gratified by a substantive discussion about big picture community needs in our community.
Thank you. Under my report, I did an interview with Al Wynn on the Coffee Break KODL show on the 15th. I had a good meeting with Michael Held of Business Oregon on the 24th about a variety of issues. I attended the same community outreach team that Councilor Richardson attended, and I would agree with him that it was probably the best meeting of the community outreach team I've attended in my term as mayor. And finally, I guess we're looking for a little direction from the city, from the council. It's been suggested that we put off our city council visioning session until our new city manager takes over. And I know there might be some discussion about that. So I think our city manager is looking for some direction as to whether we should postpone that council visioning session for after she retires and a new city manager takes over, or whether we should proceed with it now. Any comments or questions about that from anybody? Counselor Runyon.
When I saw the note about that, and I'm open to other thoughts for sure, but it made sense to me that until we get a new city manager on board, it just made sense that we should wait. There may be some issues that might need to be looked at in a quicker fashion, but I don't know what they would be at this point. But by and large, delay should not hurt anything.
Counselor Long Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have a different feeling about that. I feel that since this is council-led, and I think that we should proceed, honestly, whenever anyone starts any new job, but especially a job as big as city manager, it's going to take 6 months to a year for that person to get up to speed and really get to know our community. And really, the city manager takes direction from the council anyway. And so I believe that we could start the visioning process, which is very important to us, which is why we talked about it at our meeting in January, I guess it was. And we can certainly bring the city manager up to speed with whatever we need them to know as far as carrying that out at that time. But I would prefer to start now because it is such a big task and there are so many things that we need to decide upon before we can move forward on other things. They're all interrelated.
A good point as well.
Thank you. Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say I went round about this in my own mind a bit. Several people whose opinions I respect have asked that same question. And though my initial response is exactly like Councilor Long Curtis's, it's a council project and whomever we hire needs to get on board and execute. After some reflection, I think I'm going to say I would support postponing. I feel it might help us attract the kind of city manager we want to hire. Someone who's willing to take some initiative and bring some ideas to the table. I don't think we need to wait for a new city manager to essentially tell us what to do, but we do want one who's engaged in the community, who's bringing some ideas. And so after turning that around and about, I think I'm going to say I would support, though it's a little painful, postponing that process for a year. I guess I would also note, Mr. Mayor, that we have an urban renewal agency strategic visioning, a sort of a parallel process in mind for this fall, as I understand, which will be really important. And I would say and hope and support that would continue. So we'd do the URA visioning this year and maybe the cities a year from this fall.
Okay, anybody else? Council Randall, Council McLaughlin. Council McLaughlin.
Yes, Mayor, I prefer that we continue with the visioning process as planned and not to postpone.
Okay, Council Randall.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should move ahead and go on schedule.
Okay, I'm sensing a 3-2 breakdown here. Am I getting that correctly?
Not necessarily. I just brought up a point for a discussion topic, that's all. But I'm good either way, but I can see reasons where it would be beneficial to wait, but not, as I said, not on everything, because there are things we need to move along on. So no, I'd support it if the majority are willing to go ahead, and that's fine with me.
Well, my sense is that Councilor McLaughlin, Randall, and Long Curtis prefer to move ahead. Councilor Richardson prefers to wait. Councilor Runyon can go either way.
Yeah.
2 thumbs up on that.
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, everybody okay with moving ahead then? Okay. Julie,
Thank
do you have direction?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else under council reports? Mayor reports, nothing. Consent agenda, number 9. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Tonight, we have 3 items on the city council consent agenda. First is the approval of the June 14th city council minutes. Secondly is a resolution concurring with my appointment of Mo Burford to the Beautification Committee. And I would also like to point out that Mr. Burford is present tonight and is in attendance. I had a nice discussion with him, and I think he would be a great addition to the Beautification Committee. And finally, we have approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Wasco County for GIS services for a 3-year period. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I guess I'll go
Move to-
ahead. Go
It's a
ahead,
tie between
Darcy
McLaughlin and Juan Curtis.
No, it's not. Go ahead, Darcy.
It really doesn't matter. I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And then I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor Juan Curtis and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I see unanimous approval. Thank you all very much. Item 10A, recruitment firm for a city manager. Ms. Kruger.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. At your last city council meeting, we presented the proposals for a recruitment firm for the city manager position. And the city council asked that I do a little reference checks. And so I was able to do that. I was just going to let you know the direction of the questions that I asked were whether the process was handled professionally and in a timely manner. Was it completed with the first attempt? Were the finalists selected a good fit and matched the city's expectations? And then what was their overall impression? So that was kind of how I geared my questions for them. I received 2 replies on Jensen Strategies and 1 for Prothman. There were no negative replies at all on either one of them. While I only received 1 from the Prothman, the one who did reply to me said that it's a county in Oregon and they have used their services multiple times over the years for a variety of position recruitments, and that they were very happy with all of the work they had done for them. And then the other 2 for Jensen were equally positive. So I didn't come up with anything negative to report to you.
Okay, is there any counselor would like to make a suggestion how to proceed from here? Julie, could you remind us, there was a price difference of, was it $6,000 or $8,000?
Yes, the Prothman quote was $18,500. The Jensen quote was $25,000. And then each of the firms had a different set of expenses, like they didn't match up at all. So I think truly you're going to be pretty even one way or the other, because the Prothman seemed like some of their expenses were a little higher, but their base proposal was lower. Jensen's was higher, but some of their expenses were a little bit lower. Right. So it really just comes down, I guess, to if anyone on the city council has a preference for one over the other. I did like the Prothman one. I think I favored it myself just a little bit more because I just felt like they had a little bit more experience in the Pacific Northwest, had been around for a long time, and they have a lot of staff that they can give to us for this process.
And in response, I believe Councilor Richardson asked me at the last council meeting about my opinion, and I shared with you that I had not worked with Jensen, but Jensen had hired was the firm that hired the new city manager in Cannon Beach, where I used to work. And I understand he did a good job. I think he was a much smaller firm then. It was about 3 or 4 years ago that they hired that city manager. And I have worked directly with Prothman, and I've always been very happy with Prothman and what they can do. They have been around much longer than Jensen has. So with that, anybody have any questions or comments, or anybody would like to make a motion? Councilor Runyon.
Is there anything that precludes us additionally putting word out to the League of Oregon Cities or the National Association as far as our search?
I mean, to advertise the job or to?
Yeah, to advertise the job. We are looking, and it's a free service as well. I don't know if it'd be appropriate once we hire somebody unless they were directed to contact that agency, I guess. But it is a worthwhile tool, looking at all the cities they represent across the nation.
I would think that'd be a given myself.
I would be surprised if these two firms didn't do that through their advertising, but we can certainly ask.
Yeah. I'm good. I like the mayor's suggestion.
I like the mayor's suggestion.
What suggestion was that?
The firm that you worked with and were happy with.
Okay.
They're both exceptional firms. Their materials are great and whatnot, but it's always nice to have a personal kudo in the middle of a decision, and I appreciate that.
Anybody, any other comments or questions?
I like that Prothman has a larger staff to draw from.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Well, I vote we keep Julie for another, 10, 15 years?
Oh my goodness. I don't think I'll make it that long, Counselor, but thank you.
I'd make a motion to hire the Prothman firm in our search for a city manager, and hope that they come up with as good a people as we've had the last several.
I second the motion.
It's been moved by Council Runyon and seconded by Council Randall to hire Prothman and Associates for the city manager search. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Laughlin, aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will contact them and we will get an agreement signed and get moving for you.
Okay. 11A, use of American Rescue Plan funds. I'm gonna ask our city managers to give a staff report, and after that, I understand there's at least one person who would like to address the city council regarding this issue. So before we get to the council deliberations, I'm going to call on those people to speak if they want to.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
I have a few things to update you on since the staff report went out. One thing that has made me rethink our report a little bit is the fact that the special districts are not going to be receiving any direct funding from the state. And I had a meeting with Scott Baker from Northern Wasco County Parks and Recreation District last week, and we had a really good conversation about, what's the most important thing for the community, which I think the city and the city council, we do tend to always think that way anyway. So it was a great conversation. Scott is here, there you are. And so he'll talk a little bit more later after I finish my staff report. And then also the Next Door provided me with a list of their programs, and you heard a little bit from Anna Granados tonight about their programs, and they are interested in any kind of funding that we might be able to provide for some of their programs as well. And then one small request that doesn't really need to probably be part of the ARP funds is, in working with the chamber, you know, we approved a 75% basically budget for them for the upcoming year. But with the return of some of the lost revenue that we're proposing for transient room tax, I would like to go ahead and fund them an additional $30,000 so they can hire the staff they need in a full-time position instead of a part-time, because they really need that extra help. And so I could go ahead and do that if you agree, and then we could just not give that much to them when we get our revenues returned to us. The Parks and Recreation District is requesting $400,000 of funding, and that is a portion of what it would cost to fix up the Cirrhosis Park, and Scott will give you more detail on that. So that's a little, you know, fairly large request, but I have a plan how we can make that work. And then I'm not sure if there's an actual dollar amount, but if we hear from the next door, they may have a specific request for funding as well that you'll want to consider. So going through, you know, everything on this list met the criteria that was attached to this funding. What we were proposing in this staff report is only half of the funds that we will get, because we'll get the other half in 1 year. And so while I think that these are really great projects that we came up with and that we should move forward with them, one thing we could do is put off the East 12th Street construction of the sidewalks and storm sewer for a couple of reasons. First of all, that is one of the projects that Representative Bonham submitted to the state for funding out of part of their ARP funds. So it's a possibility that they may fund it on our behalf. And also, just because we're a little backed up in our Public Works Department from not being able to do the projects we needed to do last year, this would be a project that we could delay 1 year and use the funding that we get next year. Not to say it's not important, because it's very important for pedestrian access and safety, but we could do it in 1 year, at which time I think our Public Works Department would be much more prepared to go ahead and get that work done, because that's using a lot of our crews for that project. So that's about $588,000 that we had in our staff report that could be diverted if the city council chooses to select a different project for the first year funding.
So Julie, if I heard you correctly, you were suggesting that we take $30,000 out of the lost revenue of 298 and give that to who?
The Chamber of Commerce, for their position that they want to hire for tourism.
Okay, so.
So what I would like to do on that little piece is I would like to go ahead and give them the money so they can begin their position recruitment and get the person hired. But when we get this money back, a big chunk of that is lost revenue of transient room taxes. And that's the funding mechanism we use for that tourism contract anyway. So we'll be made whole, but I'd like to go ahead and advance that money to them so they can continue their work.
Before we hear from Mr. Baker and whoever else wants to speak, Julie, so you're suggesting that we give 30,000 to the chamber and lower the request from lost revenue from 298 to 268. Is that?
No, I'm not asking you to reduce that amount at all. I'm saying part of the money we recover through that would offset what we're paying the chamber because of their lost revenue.
Okay, but you're also suggesting that we may want to forego the $588,000 sidewalk.
Yes, I'm just saying, I think that's one project on this list that we could postpone for a year until we get the next round of funding. If the city council hears information tonight that makes you want to help support the parks project, Or maybe the city council, through your discussion, has other ideas that we don't have on our list that you think are a higher priority as well.
Have you or the staff have any discussions about the next round, about other projects that you'd like to do next year? You don't have to get into that. I just want to know if that's the
We kind of stopped here thinking this was a lot for you to chew on in one meeting. And we felt at the time that we chose the most high priority projects for this, although rethinking the East 12th Street sidewalk and storm sewer, that is something I think we can delay just because of timing on our own part.
right?
And waiting to see if we get it from the state.
And I apologize if I missed this in your report. Is there any urgency to us making a decision, or is there any kind of deadline?
There is no urgency tonight. Tonight, I wanted to bring this up for you to have time to discuss it. And if you reach some conclusions tonight, what we would do is bring it back to you in a more formal setting at a future meeting. We haven't actually been able to even apply for the funds through the state yet. They allow the large cities to apply for their own funds, but the smaller cities have to go through the state. So they're working through that right now.
Okay. Before we get to the public participation, is there any council member that has a question for the city manager? No comments or opinions yet. Any questions for Julie before we move on? Councilor Runyon.
So we're just looking at suggestions here then, is what we're seeing in front of us here. Because from more than one constituent, you know, I realize we're talking now about maybe holding off on sidewalks and storm sewer system, et cetera, as one possibility of a change. But there are other safety issues, and I don't know what the criteria are necessarily for some streets that are in really bad condition. Plus, we're having ADA ramps built all over the place, which are also leaving a lot of holes, it seems like. I don't know, it just seems like there should be a bigger discussion here if this money is allowed to be used for that purpose to help with public works.
We will be asking to recover lost fuel tax revenue, which is the revenue that we use for street maintenance. And I believe Dave Anderson is still on the line. I can't see him right now, but I don't believe that we can use these funds. Criteria did not include street maintenance. And let me see if I can see my public works director. There he is, David.
Yeah.
Did I misspeak or was that correct?
That is correct. The excuse me, the guidance or the directive that have been provided with this funding is we can't use it for streets or sidewalks per se. So what was proposed for the 12th Street project was to use those funds for the stormwater system portion of that project. And then other funds that we have, transportation SDCs, for example, to actually build the sidewalks themselves. So we can't use them for street maintenance or new construction projects.
Thank you.
Right. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Again, we want to forego any deliberation or comments at this point. Does any council member have any other questions for the city manager before we move on?
One, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilor Richardson.
Can Julie or Dave speak to whether street signage is an allowed usage with these funds?
Yes, that would be allowed as part of the safety protocol criteria.
Well, I have a comment on that, but I will wait to the appropriate time.
Councilor Long Curtis.
Yes, my question is, we have been approached by the Next Door and Parks and Rec, who are going to make presentations, and you gave us the new information that you found out they're not going to be getting money directly. Are there any other agencies or types of agencies that might be in the same type of position where they thought they might be getting some money directly but aren't?
Yes.
That we might support?
Yes, I haven't heard directly from other entities, but any special district. It could be the Port of the Dalles, Soil and Water Conservation, 4-H, any special district, of which we have numerous in our community, could also be coming and saying, we need a little help.
Okay, thank you.
These funds are pretty tied to the criteria that we used. So maybe that's why we didn't hear from them, because it wasn't specific to recreation or safety or things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Runyon, did you have a question?
No, just that I think to Julie's point and to Councilor Long Curtis is that after this meeting tonight, I think there will be requests coming out of the woodwork, and some may or may not be usable because of the criteria and so forth, but that will get weeded out. But I do think we're going to have more requests.
And if that happens, we still have funds available this year, the council could consider those, or we could say next year when we get the next round of funding, we'll move your request forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city manager? Okay, Ms. Granados, did you have any additional comments other than what you've already given us?
No, I mean, I would just like to say, as I had stated earlier, the next door has been serving the gorge for 50 years and has been vital to this community. And we would just like for you to please consider us if there is any funding available. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Scott Baker to proceed with his comments. Go ahead.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Councilors. Thanks for allowing me to address you tonight. You know, the devastation of Cirrhosis Park wrought by the pine bark beetle has just hit this community hard at a time when we were already down. If there was any choice but to, if I could have delayed cutting those trees down another year, I certainly would have. The parks are used more now than ever as people leave their homes and want a social distance, and they found the parks and they love them. We're a small agency. These funds can be used for park rehabilitation. They can be used to restore lost public revenue. I'm not here tonight asking for staff help or renewing our lost revenue, although the transient room tax would be nice. Really, I'm here asking for help for Cirrhosis Park. If the park district has to rehabilitate this park on our own, we will get it done, but it will be measured in years. And I think that the city, the residents of the city would really like to see this done in months, and we could do that with these funds. What I propose is $400,000 from the city. I'm going to make a similar request of $400,000 from the county and $200,000 of parks SDCs. We have pledged almost $100,000 in private donations. That will give us a $1.1 million to make Cirrhosis not only restored, but better than it was. And so it's the crown jewel of our town. And I just think that, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I just think that the time is right. And let's not make people wait. Let's get this done now. If I go out for grants, we're talking, you know, the cycles will take years, and system development charges can't redo this whole project. Only a portion of this rehabilitation is eligible for SDC funding. But I think with these three entities together and the windfalls of these federal dollars, it's hard to imagine a more impactful infrastructure project in our town than rebuilding Cirrhosis on a quick timeline. We have engaged a landscape architect to create a robust planting plan and irrigation plan. We're soliciting community input on what we'd like to see in phases, whether that's a new playground or gazebos or shade structures. So we're as we move forward and communicate with the people that we serve about what they'd like to see in Cirrhosis for everybody, it would be really great to know what budget we had to work with. And if we could, you know, in a kind of short timeline, say, yeah, the city's going to commit this $400,000, I think that will help make the case to the county to do the same and say, look, we've got a little over $1 million to make Cirrhosis. How do we want to spend that? It just enlivens the conversation, and it just gives people hope that cirrhosis is going to be restored in a fast timeline. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Baker? Councilor
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment, I think, as much as a question. I don't know if that's acceptable. I agree that cirrhosis is a great asset, a jewel in our community. I was up there this morning trying to beat the heat. Didn't work, but many other people were there. It's a heavily used site. I think many people in the community value it, and I would be inclined to support it. That said, I'd like to see, just as a citizen, as well as a counselor, I've not seen a plan to my recollection. I've not seen a budget. I've not seen a lot of community sort of conversation or outreach. I'd like to see those things. I'd like to see what we're proposing to spend the money on, what cirrhosis is going to look like. I feel like there's several conversations there that may have been had or may not. For instance, the planting plan. So I'd like some more information, but if that's forthcoming, Scott, if you can engage the community, if you can engage interested folks somehow and show us some details, then you've got my vote.
Yeah, and so we just had our first meeting with the consulting firm that we've hired. It's not a study. This is creating a site plan for cirrhosis. And, you know, it is a little bit delayed because we had some tentative agreements with some landscape architect students at Portland State University who were going to do this for free. That fell through. Unfortunately, that process of working with them cost us about 4 or 5 months. So we're a little bit farther. We decided that rather than taking the time to get volunteer help, we were just going to bite the bullet and spend the money to hire a firm to do that. You know, in local government, hiring a firm is never quick. You know, pesky laws. And so you know, it took a while for us to bring this firm online. We had our first meeting with them June 15th. We're doing community surveys in English and Spanish. We have 10 stakeholder interviews. We have community group interviews. We are meeting at the farmers market. We're at the Dalles 4th booth with dot voting to see what people want. So I agree with you 100%. All of those things that you mentioned are in process. We really want to make cirrhosis a park for every member of our community. It's free, it's accessible, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be equitable in its development.
That's great. Show me a budget, and between those outreach efforts and a budget, I think we're nearly there. At least for me.
So part of that scope of work is really listening to the community, taking what they want, distilling it into a phased plan, and then part of that is going to include cost estimating. We will have that by Labor Day, and so the drop dead deadline for that site plan is Labor Day. I need to be ready to submit for Land and Water Conservation Fund grant cycles this fall, and I need that budget and that site plan for that application. However, it would be great to not have to wait for a grant and just build this.
Well, I mean, I suppose that's always true. But with regard to I think it's the 1.1 million, where'd that number come from?
It's some of the work that we've already done with estimates of $300,000 for irrigation, $500,000 for playgrounds. I know what gazebos cost. We've heard a lot of things from people already about what they want to see in their park, pickleball courts, chief among them. And so I do this for a living. I know about what those things cost. When I add them all up, we're approaching $2 million. That's why I think it will still be a phased plan. Also, in the first round of COVID relief funding, special districts were given just over 10% of the funds. In this round, they were not directly rewarded, but we were eligible as a pass-through partner from our cities and counties. So I looked at the 3.5 and 11% of that, and a little bit less than 10% from the county was where we got 400,000. And I think that's really, I know it's a lot of zeros, But I think that's what it's going to take to, if we not only restore cirrhosis, but to make it better than it was.
So people that really want to put their 2 cents in could go down to the farmer's market and participate, it sounds like.
Correct.
All
And
right.
but we're also doing focus groups with specific populations, whether it's at the senior center or also with some groups to the next door. And you know, we also hope to, like we did with our master plan, work with like the cherry growers who will allow us to set up and talk directly with their workers in their break room. So we're pretty aggressive about trying to go out and get to the people, not relying on them to come to us.
Thank you.
Councilor Long Curtis.
Yes, Mr. Baker, have you reached out to the disability community to get their input on what they would like to see in a park like this?
Absolutely, and we have some active folks in our community who feel passionately about this, and I feel passionately about it. I attended a class on how to build parks for people of all abilities and in inclusive play. So I have them, they're volunteers that are going to work with us when we get to the point of rebuilding that playground.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Baker? Councilor McLaughlin.
I don't know about questions, but I was there at the beginning of the playground, and I invested money and time and sweat. And I witnessed a community coming together like I've never seen before. And our park is a jewel of our community. And I believe that it requires our investment at this time in order to bring it back. And so I'm in support of the request.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Baker? I have 3. Scott, your letter alludes to $100,000 in private donations.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a goal or is that a commitment you've got, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's both. It's just I kind of like to echo what Dan said. I pick up the phone and someone says, as soon as I know what I'm contributing towards, I'm here. I've got my checkbook ready. So we need to get that answer. And then also we have 2 individuals who have pledged large donations. At this time, they want to remain anonymous. I don't know if that will continue, but one is $50,000, and that gets us halfway there. Just that one donation. So.
Wow, that's great. If the county does not participate and you came up with, say, our 400 and 100,000 in donations, would you do part of the work, or you couldn't do anything with that much money? How?
It's and $200,000 from the park district, we would do a lot with that money. I think that's one of the reasons why there is some urgency to this request is that it would be really helpful for that landscape architect to design their phases knowing what our budget is. And so, you know, I mean, head nodding gets us there. It don't need anything formal. But if it also, I think that a pledge from this body encourages Wasco County to step up and do the same. It is a regional park that serves the whole county. Heck, it serves Goldendale. And so, you know, I think that there's a strong case to be made that this is an infrastructure project that it fits the criteria. And this is this federal windfall. It's a perfect fit for this, and it couldn't be more timely.
Yeah, my third question already got answered. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, we'll get to your deliberation in a few minutes. Just bear with us. Is there anybody else that would like to address the city council regarding this issue? Anybody? Okay, we'll get into deliberation. It seems to me that we have 2 options. One is for someone to make a motion to allocate 1.5 and change $1 million and with a suggested breakdown, or we can refer this to, say, a subcommittee of the city council, of which I'd be happy to participate. I would certainly appoint myself to that committee. If that's the way you want to go, I don't know that there's another option at this point, but I'm open for any suggestions at this point of where do we want to go from here?
We were hoping this evening that if counselors had other ideas, as an example, Counselor Richardson was interested in maybe some funding for additional safety measures and stop signs and things like that. If we could hear that tonight and hear what you think about the report that we presented, then I think we can come back to you with a more firm recommendation.
Counselor Richardson, do you want to expand on your thoughts about signage?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In meeting with the Traffic Safety Commission, there was a fairly in-depth discussion at the last meeting, and I take it that it's some sort of an ongoing discussion about the utility and want for additional sort of enhanced signage at some key intersections around town. So things like the LED light up stop signs, some speed feedback kind of signage. It's not my area of expertise. I know I'd like some in my neighborhood, but that's not the request so much as I would like to see if we could carve out a modest amount, maybe on the order of $30,000 or $40,000 in the appropriate department, such that some of the Traffic Safety Commission's recommendations for enhanced safety at key intersections and areas could be acted on. This seems like, the sort of thing we want to be doing anyway. We have done, the Public Works is doing. I really find the LED stop signs effective. I'd like to see some more of those. And so that's what I'm asking for, just a modest amount. Again, 30 to 40,000, I think would allow for a small number of signs. And my second point, I guess, since I've kind of got the floor, is I'm wondering if it's maybe worth setting aside a certain sum for social services, in that there may be other like-minded agencies or other agencies in addition to the next door who are doing really important work for maybe the most hard-pressed among us that will be interested in making requests of these funds. So if we had a lump sum in mind, maybe that would be helpful to us.
Counselor, would you be open to, since, as the city manager pointed out, we haven't really heard from any other nonprofits other than Nextdoor about foregoing any decision on any nonprofit contributions to the next round of funding, to give us time to establish some criteria and hear requests from others.
You mean next year?
Yeah, the second round of funding that would come next year, the second half.
Yeah, sure. I'm open to that. Establishing some criteria, putting word out, having some lump, some sort of not to exceed some that we're interested in considering. I think those are all good things, and I guess I don't have strong feelings either way. I just feel that if we're trying to apportion our roughly $1.5 or $1.75 million, that we need to have some number in mind that we're willing to spend on those things.
Other comments?
Yeah, I support Council Richardson, and I've witnessed the safety improvements that we've had coming off the freeway on 2nd Street. Also the signage with the lighted stop signs and with coming down off of Dry Hollow. Those are all effective ways of slowing down traffic, and it's become safer. So I think $30,000 to $40,000 placed in this item, I approve, and I go along with that.
Did I see Councilor Runyon's hand go up?
Yeah, I thought early on, our city manager was saying, we're not making a decision tonight. And for this very reason, that there's some other items coming forward. We're taking some out of the paperwork that we have here in front of us. So there needs to be a realigning of what is being asked for and what isn't being asked for. Plus, there will be some other requests out there. And, I think we could come back with information a little more detailed, and if we're taking things out of here again, so be it. But I don't think she was looking for a decision tonight. Were you, Julie? That's what I heard anyway.
Looking for a decision tonight at all, but I am very much appreciating all of your comments, and I'm taking notes so that when I do come back, it will be a more, it will be a proposal that I would ask that you'd want to approve.
Yeah.
Council Randall.
Yeah, I think we could give her some a little more direction, I guess. Guidance is her suggestion that we defer the construction of sidewalks and storm sewers along 12th. Last time I was up there, I don't think they've even broken ground yet for that residential development. So, and then she also indicated that there might be some additional funding coming up next year through the legislature for that. So I think that's a great opportunity to take that sum of 588, and redirect the 400,000 to the Parks and Recreation. That leaves you another $188,000 to parcel out among the other requests we get.
Councilor Long Curtis.
Yeah, so just for purposes of discussion, I agree with Councilor Randall and also the city manager that, we do have a little bit of time, at least as far as I'm concerned, in order to maybe defer that 12th Street project, which is very important to me. I do want to make sure that gets done for safety issues. But I do feel it's probably more timely to do something with the social services right now where people are suffering rather than putting that off until next year. I am in favor of $30,000 for the Chamber of Commerce, being replaced by the TRT dollars coming back into our budget, just because tourism is picking up now, and I feel like we need to take that on. Another thing that I think is really important for us and that we've learned during this pandemic is that we are desperately in need of easy to clean public bathrooms that can be monitored and kept safe for people. And for that reason, we shouldn't be relying on restaurants and other businesses downtown to be bearing the brunt of that, particularly if we have another round where we have to have those closed. And the loos, we had a big report on those before, and I know not everyone was present on council when that happened, but there are some really good reasons to consider those in addition to the outdoor access to the veterans, because I'm concerned about possible drug use inside of those. I'm concerned about people not being able to see if somebody else is in there, where the loo actually takes those considerations into account. You can see underneath them, they have special lighting so people can't do IV drug use in there. They're easy to hose out, and they're basically indestructible. And also, as far as for cleaning, we could partner with some of our agencies where they have people with supported employment, and there are grants available to help fund that supported employment. And then the people could have opportunities for employment, cleaning out those, because janitorial work is very typical type of work for that. So I would hope that we would be considering those things as well. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor McLaughlin.
Well, I'll give a quick rundown. Replace lost fuel tax revenue, yes, that's very important. Appropriate 75,000 multi-year program, yes. Create a property acquisition fund, yes, that's important. Delay the sidewalk and storm, I would recommend that too until we know more about the state sourcing. And I believe that the support the safety staff for police or their department, I support that. And $30,000 for the chamber, yes, very much. And is there anything else I've missed? That gives you just a little bit. I agree with all of the recommendations by city manager, and that's my take on what I've been reviewing.
Counselor, did you, I didn't hear you say anything about the signage that Counselor Richardson brought up.
Actually, that I did miss that. And yes, if we reappropriate some of the monies, I think using the monies from the sewer, I think that would be a way, another possible way. And I'd leave it at the discretion of city management.
Okay, I don't have a vote, but I agree with everything that Councilor McLaughlin just said, with one slight exception. I do believe that there would be additional money left over, especially if we cut the sidewalk on 12th Street. I'd like to see more money go to the downtown. The $75,000, I'd like to see that get raised with any additional funding that might come forward. That's my personal opinion. Councilor Curtis.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I did want to comment on that. I was kind of hoping that we could use some of those dollars for all of the city of the Dalles and not just focus on the downtown, maybe specifically saying for areas outside of urban renewal, because we do have money set aside for urban renewal, which is also not just downtown. It actually extends out 2nd Street. And some of those areas have been neglected. So I just want to, I've just been thinking a lot lately that we've done a whole lot. We focus a whole lot on downtown, but there's so much more to the Dalles that could use some assistance from us. And there really don't seem to be any other funds that we could use in the way we do for downtown businesses. So I really would like us to think about that seriously.
And I don't have a
I just have,
let me just say, I don't have a, since that comment was after mine, is that I don't have a problem with concentrating on the urban renewal district as opposed to just the central business district. But I do think that we should give more money toward what Councilor Long Curtis is suggesting, and I think I agree with. Councilor McLaughlin.
I'm just also considering the security cameras, that it would be really nice. I know we have a lot of different cameras in different areas, but having one focused company that installs and manages, I think we would all benefit if we had some centralized location for the cameras within town. So that's something to look forward down the road, but one possible option for some of the funding.
Councilor McLaughlin, thank you for that comment. I would like to let you know that as we're working on finishing up some security camera placement on a few of our buildings, we are consolidating it all to one. It's all one company, all the same equipment. As we upgrade, we stay with that company. And so I think we're on that road already. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good. That's great news.
Okay, any other comments or suggestions or questions on this topic? Yeah, Julie.
Mayor, I think I heard from all of you that you would support adding the Parks and Recreation District request into this. If I could just get a head nod or something so I make sure I understood that correctly, then we can start working on revising this and coming back to you.
Yeah, that is a big chunk of the money here. Does anybody have any objection to the city manager incorporating the $400,000 for Cirrhosis Park? Councilor Long Curtis.
I don't have an objection, but I was just curious, and maybe Mr. Baker could answer this. Does all 400,000 need to come out of this year, or could a big chunk of it, but part of it come out of next year, just so we have a little more flexibility with money this year?
Mr. Baker?
There's strong preference for having it in this first year because even though those funds will be the second 1.75, we don't know when those funds are actually going to come into the city's coffers. I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions even for this first round. And so even though the money's been allocated, it's not in the bank account yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just comment that I am in favor of supporting the $400,000 for Parks and Rec.
Okay, I see. Is there any objections to that? Council Runyon?
I just thought we're not voting on anything tonight. Julie is going to put together a more detailed sheet, do some bouncing around. It may be that we can't do 400,000 after she looks at it. Maybe it's just 399. I don't know. But she keeps saying she wants the opportunity to relist this and remove some things and get the numbers in order. We don't have an exact number from the next door that I've heard at this point. If I missed it, I apologize. But again, I think we're letting our city manager come back to us at the next meeting with a list of is a little more definable.
Yeah, and I guess where I'm going with this is that unless somebody objects, that list is going to include $400,000 for cirrhosis.
Well, I'm going to say I'm all for Parks and Rec receiving an amount of money. I would like our city manager's input on how that happens and if that number is good, or maybe they need more. So she seems to have a handle on it, and I would like her to have that opportunity.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Mayor, I would second what Councilor Runyon just said and what he alluded to. One point that he alluded to specifically, that to the extent possible or practical, that requests come with an actual dollar figure for and some sort of budgetary note, what they are being requested for specifically, with as great a specificity as is practical.
Agreed.
Okay, Julie, you feel, is this something you can put together for the next council meeting? Is that what your goal was?
Well, I will have it put together for the second council meeting in July, because our deadline for next meeting is Wednesday, and I know I won't get it done that quickly. But this has been an excellent discussion. I really appreciate everybody's input. I feel like I have great direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this issue? Okay, is there any other business to come before the city council that anybody would like to bring up?
Stay cool.
Yeah, please stay cool, and please watch yourself on the fireworks. And I'm looking forward to some sort of ban at the with some kind of a fine. And let's use our good judgment out there, folks. Thank you very much, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.